Hello, sisters, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored and very happy to be here to today's site event. I became Sustainable Development Goals Ambassador, and in the very beginning I would like to present you some data related to this extremely important topic, the gender-based violence. Domestic and gender-based violence is one of the most serious forms of human rights and violations. According to the results of both Czech and international surveys, almost every third woman experiences domestic violence in the Czech Republic, which is extremely alarming fact. One of the current serious problems in this area is the increase in partner violence among young people and adolescents. International research shows that 1/3 of young people experience violence in their relationship. Young people and adolescents spend a large part of their lives in cyberspace in which a wide range of violence occurs. However, this violence has different nature, although it is not physical violence, but primarily psychological. These attacks can be even more harming. In the context of partner violence of young people and adolescents, the main forms are, for example, even checking partner's phone without their consent, right? Forcing to send erotic photos, or also so-called porn revenge. That's something, but especially after the relationship ends, that means threatening or publishing erotic photos or videos of partners on social networks. Other forms of cyber violence may be hacking, impersonating someone, harassing, blackmailing, or online spreading of harmful information. Cyber violence has several psychological impacts like depression, loss of self-esteem, self-harm, or even, in the worst cases, unfortunately, suicide. It has also economic impacts like losing of employment due to the publication of sensitive content on the internet, or costs of preventing and combating these forms of violence. Next are physical impacts in cases when violence in cyberspace is linked to the violent contact in real life, such as stalking, injuries, or illnesses as the result of assault. Last but not least are the social impacts, like impact on relationships, isolation from the family or friends and community, or general social isolation. Recent research by Czech NGO Profen showed that 43% of young people in their relationship have experienced these forms of violence, suffer from long-term inability to concentrate in school or study. Every fourth girl or boy experiencing violence or cyber violence in a relationship suffers from anorexia or significant weight loss. 18% of young people experiencing partner violence are concerned about their own lives, and 16% of the victims think of suicide. Well, now when we know all the numbers and how serious this issue is, let's look at some particular cases. In October 2014, unknown people on Facebook started to create pages to focus attacks on specific women and encourage attacks by other individuals, mostly ex-partners of these girls or women. These pages usually referred to a particular city or location in the Czech Republic and included published photos of half-naked or naked pictures of these women, along with information that they were prostitutes or they referred to their promiscuity. Dozens of pages with this content were created and spread out. This case hit hundreds of women around our country. Another alarming case, 20-year-old Martina in January 2016 experienced organized attack by a group of unknown people through social network. The trigger was that she publicly shared information about cancellation of the website she reported for its defective content and violation of social network rules. The attackers shared a public photo of Martina with a link to her Facebook post on the affiliated pages of the cancelled Facebook page. Within few hours, her personal page on Facebook was crammed with dozens of hateful comments, insults, and threats. Last, Later she learned that someone also shared her phone number and email. This has triggered a new wave of insults and threats, now in the form of phone calls, messages, and emails. Threats covered finding her and attacking her and her family, actually, physically publishing her IP address, snipping, and rape threats. Especially writers threatened her with sexual assaults and wished her to experience rape. They also rated her physical appearance as insufficiently attractive and pointed out that no man wanted her, and therefore she was frustrated and she desired to be raped. The attack took place with gradually decreasing intensity for about 3 weeks and had dramatic impact on Martina's mental state, as she was concerned about her own safety and life. Phenomenon of these days, social media. We all know their positive sides, but I think we should be much more concentrating on their negative sides also. Me personally, I have my own experience with this, and honestly I'm very happy that back in 2006 when I became Miss World, I really didn't have to go through online bullying by anonymous people so much, because social networks were just in their beginnings, so I hardly had a Facebook back at that time. And you know, even today, and I'm adult, and I have been a public person for a long time, unfortunately, fortunately. Even today, when some people bully me for something I never done, or my work, my job, sometimes you just cannot ignore it without any emotion. And unfortunately, I had another very bad experience, personal experience, which was very extremely frustrating. When I was 20 years old, I was already a public person. Someone just decided to discriminate me and my partner at the time, and they made fake cartoons, porn comics. It was drawn, you know, but it looked really realistic. I mean, I couldn't explain my grandparents that it's not really me. And of course, all media in Czech Republic wrote about it, they published it, it was spread out. I was 20 years old. You cannot imagine what it meant for me, my parents, my younger sisters. And you know what, we couldn't do anything. We were innocent victims, and basically there were, back in the days, in 2006, there was no protection. And even today, I think it's really hard to find. So that's my personal story. And not just a long time ago, I read this article about one Australian girl. She was a teenager. I think she was like 11, 12 years old. And she became a face of this brand. She did some commercial. And since it was published, people started sending her really awful messages and comments like how ugly she is and how bad she was. And you know what, in the end of the day, she committed suicide. So what I'm saying, this is really happening. You know, like cyberspace is new space for new forms of discrimination, bullying, and crime. So I think we really must not be tolerant to this at all. We should really make sure that there is enough help, enough protection, and also enough punishment for these attackers. So just to sum up my paper, I would like to point out one thing, that a serious problem is the degree of tolerance towards these forms of violence. Cyberspace and its impacts are very often underestimated. The most common argument is that there is absence of physical violence, but we all know that psychological violence can be even harder and more intense. So, and all these things have huge impacts, of course, on youth, on young people's minds. So therefore, I'm very glad that Czech Republic, our country, is dedicated to this important topic and organizes this site event. I would also like to thank NGO Consent for extremely important work you guys do, and you're doing an amazing job for awareness-raising activities and campaigns on this topic. And finally, I would like to thank all of you guys for coming today, and I look forward for inspirational discussion. Thank you very much.